What the fuck happened? So, Sonic Mania released back in 2017, and even though I haven't reviewed it yet, because dear lord, my dual retrospective has been going on for almost 3 years and I'm not even at the halfway point yet, I thought it was a really good game, and so did the wider Sonic community, garnering praise all across the board for finally giving us a good Sonic game when the last few years were filled with mostly mediocrity and dog shit, as well as calling back to the Hedgehog's roots in a proper way, unlike their last attempt. So of course, it was inevitable that we'd be getting more games like this, right? So yeah, it took a while for that to happen, but in June of 2023, just a few weeks before the release of Sonic Origins Plus and the second update for Sonic Frontiers, we got an announcement out of nowhere at the Summer Game Fest, an event that has essentially replaced E3, you will be missed, about an upcoming 2D Sonic game that would be taking on a more modern visual style with 3D graphics rather than pixel art like Mania. But unlike Sonic 4 and Sonic Forces, this one promised to actually control like a classic Sonic game. In the build-up to this game's release, however, there were a couple major red flags for me, which I will address when I get to them. But first, let's talk about the developers of this game. Apparently, Sonic Team had been in talks with Evening Star, a development team founded by Christian Whitehead and other fellow Sonic Mania devs, to make this game. However, plans didn't end up going through, and Evening Star turned their focus to making an original 3D platformer called Penny's Big Breakaway, a game I haven't had a chance to play yet because your girl's currently jobless and broke, but I've heard it's pretty good, so I'll definitely give it a try when I have the money. So, with Evening Star unavailable, Sonic Team head Takashi Iizuka spoke with the original series character designer Naoto Oshima to see if he and his team would be interested in making this game, and they were. So yeah, this means this is the first time since Sonic Adventure that Oshima-san has worked on a Sonic game. As for his development team, Arzest, I never actually heard of them before this game, so I took a look at some of the other games they made. So according to this, they worked on Yoshi's New Island. Well, I mean, I thought that was a pretty good game. Doesn't hold a candle to the original, obviously, but still pretty good. What else did they work on? Balan Wonderworld.
Oh no!
This was the first major red flag for me. Once I learned they were responsible for that atrocity, I was a little worried for this game. But I remained cautiously optimistic, and on October 17th, 2023, only 4 months after the game was revealed, it released, and it kinda sucked. Yeah, I'm kinda jumping the gun here, but I didn't really like Sonic Superstars all that much. It's not a horrible game, but it's definitely not a good one either. So I think maybe we should start with the story, is what I would be saying, except there's a problem. I have no idea what the story of this game is. This game does an absolutely terrible job at explaining the story. Of course, we have the usual prequel animation and comic, but why do they keep doing this? I don't have a problem with them doing animations and comic strips to promote the game, not at all. The thing I have a problem with is them not including them in the game itself. Why not have the prequel animation and comic book be unlockable in the game shop? The best I could extrapolate from this poor storytelling is this. Dr. Robotnik and his hired accomplice, Knack the Weasel, I mean Fang the Sniper, I mean Fang the Hunter, Jesus, can they stop changing his name so goddamn much? Arrive at an island known as North Star Island, not to be confused with the Starfall Islands from Sonic Frontiers. Can you guys please come up with more unique and creative names? That apparently contains incredible wonders. Once arriving, they come across the island's native flickies, which are fucking massive, and decide to enslave them to make giant robots, with Fang also forcing one of the island's locals, newcomer Trip the Sungazer, to assist them, even though she clearly doesn't want to, but she's the classic shy type and can't muster enough courage to stand up for herself. Of course, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy hear about this and all set out to stop Robotnik as usual. At one point, Trip falls victim to one of her own traps, and lost and scared, Amy manages to find her and rescue her. This, combined with Fang's constant mistreatment of her, finally convinces her to stand up for herself, taking the Chaos Emeralds that Fang stole from Knuckles, because Knuckles is a goddamn moron, and uses them to transform into... What the fuck? Since when can the Chaos Emeralds completely change someone's species? Anyways, she scares Fang off and officially joins Sonic's group to help stop Robotnik and Fang. After destroying the Egg Fortress, a lone Egg Robo enacts its own plan and... Wait, haven't we done this before? So yeah, after completing the main game, you unlock the ability to play as Trip, as well as unlock her own exclusive story, and just like Knuckles' story in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, it's just the main game again, but much harder, and fighting an Egg Robo instead of Robotnik. And also Fang decides to try and take revenge on Trip. Sometime after this, a random-ass dragon comes out of fucking nowhere, so it's up to Super Sonic to defeat it. Did that story sound rushed and incohesive? Well, that's pretty much how it's presented. So, with the quote-unquote story out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all control exactly as you'd expect, and I'll give the dev team this. They did a pretty damn good job at making the physics as accurate to the Genesis games as they could. Sonic, unfortunately, doesn't have the Insta-Shield or Super Peel-Out, not even as unlockables, but he does have the Drop Dash, and I love this. I love that the Drop Dash has just become a permanent part of classic Sonic's moveset, and I'm hoping they include it for him in the upcoming Sonic X Shadow Generations. Yes, that is seriously the game's name. Amy controls pretty much the same as she did in Sonic Origins Plus, except she doesn't shoot off in whatever direction you're facing when slamming her hammer on the ground, and she also has the ability to double jump. As for the newcomer Trip, she has a double jump just like Amy, but can also cling to walls and ceilings and roll on them, kinda like the Spike Wisp from Sonic Colors. The main gameplay addition here comes in the form of Emerald powers. Each Chaos Emerald you collect gives you a new power. However, of course, you have to collect them first. To do that, you have to find the hidden giant ring in the stage, just like in Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Sonic Mania. However, unlike those games, the giant rings are much easier to spot because they glow and have a shimmering sound effect. You can only collect one emerald per zone though, which I think is great for giving players the opportunity to experiment with each new power. After collecting an emerald in a zone, the remaining giant rings will now be blue and give you medals instead of an emerald. Yeah, let me talk about the medals real quick because they're kinda useless. You can use the medals you collect to buy parts to build a robot to play as in battle mode, something I didn't even bother with because it didn't look that interesting to me. But holy shit, the amount of medals you need is atrocious, basically requiring you to grind for them. Aside from the special stages, you can find medals in the level itself or enter the bonus stage by crossing a checkpoint with a certain number of rings. However, these bonus stages are just the Sonic 1 special stages, which if you watch my Sonic 1 review, you'd know I don't like. Back to the special stages themselves. Holy shit, these fucking suck. You have to swing off of these orbs to reach the emerald. Kind of unfortunate timing since Spider-Man 2 came out the same week. But my god, sometimes the homing reticle just doesn't want to show up. Plus, apparently in multiplayer, each swing switches characters. Like, what the fuck? How are you supposed to coordinate that? Yeah, just to nip this in the bud real quick, I have no personal experience with this game's multiplayer since none of my friends live close to me and my computer for some reason can't run Parsec. Now, you might be asking, why don't you play online? Well, that's the thing. This game doesn't have online multiplayer for story mode, only battle mode, which is just a side mode. Story mode multiplayer is local only. But from what I've heard, this game's multiplayer is atrocious, even worse than the likes of the new Super Mario Bros. Games. Anyways, to access the Emerald powers, you have to select them from this scroll wheel, kind of reminding me of the weapon wheel from GTA 5. And once you use one, you have to cross a checkpoint to be able to use it again. The first Emerald gives you Avatar, which just creates a bunch of clones of you that run across the screen and destroy things like walls, enemies, and item boxes. The second Emerald gives you Bullet, which is essentially just the Burst Wisp from Sonic Colors, but a little bit better. Huh. Second time I've made a Sonic Colors reference in this video. The third Emerald gives you Vision, which reveals hidden platforms and rings. Okay, kinda gimmicky. I think I only used this like once or maybe twice, but whatever. The fourth Emerald gives you Water, which can be used to swim around in water and also climb waterfalls. The fifth Emerald gives you Ivy, which creates a vine that you climb until you stop holding the button. Again, very gimmicky. The sixth Emerald gives you Slow, which, as the name suggests, slows down time. The seventh Emerald gives you Special, which is just a unique move for each character. For Sonic, it's the homing attack. For Tails, it's a tail swipe. For Knuckles, it's punching? Really? His special move is something he does on the regular? For Amy, it's throwing a bunch of hammers like a Hammer Bro from Mario, just like her hyper form in Origins Plus's version of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And finally for Trip, it's the ability to shoot fireballs. Just like the Fire Flower power-up from Mario. Huh. And of course, collecting all 7 emeralds allows you to go super. Well, for Sonic at least, everyone else gets, and I quote, super powers. Really, guys? You're really going to keep trying to say only Sonic, Shadow, and Silver can go super? Sonic Frontiers literally name-dropped Super Knuckles! Also, since Super Trip is literally a dragon, this means she can fly and breathe fire, allowing her to basically avoid any and all platforming and obstacles, and even cheese boss fights. Look at this, I'm literally not doing anything here! Oh yeah, the bosses. Oh boy, the bosses. Holy fucking shit! Every single boss fight in this game is fucking terrible! They're all just waiting games. You wait for an opening, you hit them once, and then sit through more attacks before getting another chance. And the final boss of the main story mode. Holy shit, this is without a doubt the worst final boss in the entire series. Tons of beginner's traps, trial and error, unclear objectives. It is a nightmare. Also, the timer is counting down because the whole gimmick of Egg Fortress Act 2 is going through Act 1 but backwards, which is admittedly cool, but the timer still counts down even in the boss, which led me to think that I had to beat the boss in however much time I had left at the end of the act, but nope, nothing happens when it reaches 0. Why even continue the countdown if it doesn't mean anything in the boss fight? There's also a second phase, and you might think that this triggers a checkpoint because of the cutscene, but nope! If you die here, you have to do the entire first phase all over again! And Trip's version of this fight is also a nightmare, and I'm not just talking about the second phase with the giant robot, no. I'm also talking about the first phase, which is just Fang in his mech. It got to the point where I literally stopped playing and just downloaded a completed save file to show off the true final boss. I literally could not bring myself to finish Trip's story because I wasn't having a good time. And you know what I do when I'm not having a good time with a game? I stop playing. The true final boss isn't any better either. I died a lot on this one too, not because it's hard, it's actually one of the easier fights in the game. No, I kept dying because I kept running out of rings because the ring spawns are completely random. I'm gonna stop ranting about the bosses now before I have a goddamn stroke, but I still need to talk about the levels and the music, so let's just do that. The first level is Bridge Island Zone. It's a grass-themed level, and thank God it's not Green Hill Zone, because that shit was getting old. Wait a minute. God damn it! Okay, sure, it may be a Green Hill recolor, but at least the actual Green Hill isn't here. Motherfuck! The second level is Speed Jungle Zone. It's a jungle level, not much to say there, although it does have an act exclusive to Sonic where Fang chases you throughout the level. Also, in Act 2, there's these butterflies that help light up the way. Gee, I wonder where they came up with that idea. The third level is Sky Temple Zone. This one's a single act level, reminded me a lot of Sky Canyon from Sonic Advance 2, come to think of it. Also, there's this one section which is literally just Atari Breakout. Like, no joke, this is literally just Atari Breakout. Also, is it just me, or do the first few notes of the music sound a lot like Launch Base Zone from Sonic 3, the Michael Jackson version, I mean? The fourth level is Pinball Carnival Zone. It's your standard pinball/casino level. Act 2 has things get darker and more spooky. Gee, I wonder where they came up with that idea. And also...
Can you feel the sunshine?
Anyway, the fifth level is Lagoon City Zone. It's your standard water level, very reminiscent of Hydro City, come to think of it. This one also has an act specifically dedicated to Amy, which contains giant fruit for some reason. The sixth level is Sand Sanctuary Zone. This one's another single act level, which is just your standard desert level, nothing too interesting here. The seventh level is Press Factory Zone. Holy shit, talk about back-to-back annoying gimmicks. Act 1 has this press machine in the background that slams down every few seconds, causing the player to be launched up. This makes platforming almost impossible. Then in Act 2, you have to keep the factory from burning down by pressing these buttons, kind of like the gimmick from Sandopolis Act 2, only this time, instead of being able to continue without pressing the buttons, the level just outright kills you. And let me tell you, there is nothing more annoying than falling back down a platforming section at the top and being unable to make it to the next button in time. Also, what the fuck did they do to the rotating spheres? These were so easy to control in Sonic 3 and Sonic Mania, but here, I can't get the character to face the right direction. Yeah, without a doubt, Press Factory is the worst level in the game. The eighth level is Golden Capital Zone. One word. Rings. This level has buttloads of rings and mechanics that give you rings. Holy shit, I didn't realize I was playing New Super Mario Bros. 2. This level also has an act specifically dedicated to Knuckles. It ends with him losing the emeralds. Nice going there, Knux. And I know I said I wasn't gonna harp on the bosses anymore, but Act 2's boss is like 90% waiting, like holy shit! The 9th level is Cyber Station Zone, the last single act level, which has a really cool voxel aesthetic to it. If you don't know what voxels are, they're essentially just 3D pixels. There's also parts where you turn into a jellyfish, and a mouse, and a rocket? What the fuck? Also, the boss of this level is the robot you created for battle mode, which I actually think is pretty neat. The 10th level is Frozen Base Zone. It's a snowy base. Not much to say there. This level also has an act specifically dedicated to Tails. What's weird about that, though, is that at the end of Cyber Station, you can choose to go to either Act 1 or Act Tails, but if you choose Act 1, it skips Act Tails at the end and goes straight to Act 2, and if you choose Act Tails, it skips straight over Act 1. What the fuck? Act 2 is just Fantasy Zone, an old Sega shoot-'em-up game that predates Sonic 1 by about 5 years. One thing that's cool about this, though, is the Eggmobile the player pilots is actually a reference to their first game. Sonic pilots the Eggmobile from Sonic 1, Tails pilots the Eggmobile from Sonic 2, Knuckles pilots the Eggmobile from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and Amy pilots the Eggmobile from Sonic CD. Trip, on the other hand, pilots the Egg Scorcher Mark III? Okay then. The 11th and final level is Egg Fortress Zone. It's your standard final level, not much to mention here, although you can see the end from Sonic Frontiers in the background, which raises many questions. Also, like I mentioned earlier, at the end of Act 1, Robotnik reverses time with this machine he just randomly has. It's not a time stone, not the Phantom Ruby, it's just random time travel machine. And Act 2 is just Act 1, but backwards. So, with the levels done, let's talk about the music. Holy shit, what a mixed bag this soundtrack is! Some songs here are really good, like Bridge Island Act 1 and Lagoon City Act 2. And then there are others which sound horrendous, like Press Factory Act 1. Honestly, I feel like there were issues behind the scenes with the music because 1, the credits medley versions of some songs sound like Sonic 4 songs unlike their actual in-game versions, and 2, the demos for this game had placeholder music ripped straight from Sonic 4, which was the other major red flag I mentioned earlier. So overall, Sonic Superstars was a major disappointment and definitely not worth $60. Hell, even $20 is too much for this game. I really did not enjoy my time with this game, and that sucks to admit because this is the first time classic Sonic has controlled well in a 2.5D game. I didn't even mention how buggy the game was at launch, or the battle mode, but at this point, I am tired. I literally had to force myself to finish the game for this review, and I don't like doing that because it means I wasn't having fun with the game. And hell, I didn't even really finish it. I just downloaded a complete save file so I could show off the final boss. Overall, I give this game a 4 out of 10. It's not a terrible game, but it's not a good game either. Even if you don't agree with my opinion and want to give this game a shot, don't pay $60 for this. Wait for a sale or a price drop. Do not pay $60 for a game that does not deserve it. Well, that was a sour ending. So, I originally said in my Sonic Heroes review that after my Sonic Superstars review, I was going to review Shadow the Hedgehog, but since my Sonic Heroes review, another game has come out exclusive to Apple devices. That's a first. So, I'll see you all next time with Sonic Dream Team.